Thank you very much. Maybe let's start with a quick show of hands. How many people in the audience today represent retailers or brands? Okay, logistics companies? Okay, so maybe let's start with a little bit of a trivia game, but keep the answers to yourself if you have them, and we can get back to them a little bit later. All right, how much do deliveries cost you? Do you know that answer to the cent? Do your customers receive their deliveries on time? And how do they truly feel about the delivery experience? These are questions that were not relevant maybe 20 or 10 years ago, but welcome to the age of Amazon. I'm Michael Weinberg, I'm the SVP of Bringg, and I'm here today to talk about a few of the implications that we're seeing from many of our customers globally of what we consider the age of Amazon. Quick clarification, when we talk about the age of Amazon, it's not just Amazon. It's companies like Deliveroo in Europe, and it's companies like Uber and Instacart, and many other companies that provide a very good fulfillment experience. And let's talk a little bit about what that has done to our collective markets here. So your customers likely are also shopping on these other platforms that I just described. And they're getting a phenomenal experience, right? And as a consequence, if I can just switch slides, they're expecting a better customer experience, right? And customer experience today is not e-commerce, it's not the digital experience, it's more about the fulfillment experience. It takes us the whole of about 30 seconds to pick merchandise on an e-commerce website. That's when the real experience starts, from the options I receive for when I can get my delivery, from the communication and control I have over everything. They're expecting more transparency, knowing where my package is, when am I going to get it, but actually control, as I briefly alluded, being able to actually make last-minute changes. I need another 30 minutes, please leave it with my neighbor. And they're expecting more convenience, right? The whole fulfillment experience, the whole delivery experience needs to be better and more customized to our customers. What does that mean for you? As retailers, as brands, as logistics companies, you need to do more. And the fact that you're sitting here today is proof that you realize that you need to be doing more, and you're trying to think about ways in which you can accomplish that. So what is it that you need to do more of? You need to provide more delivery options. Doing FedEx, UPS, or DHL is probably not sufficient for many of you. You need to be able to offer maybe same day, pick up from store, curbside deliveries, reverse logistics. You need to provide more geo and peak coverage, right? Customers don't care if they're ordering for a time where your fleet is actually busy right now. They need to be able to receive a promise that's going to be kept. Now, deliveries have become very expensive. The average delivery, and this is a US-based number, I heard a parallel in the UK which makes it sound like it's spot on. The average delivery costs a business $10 to fulfill. The average customer is charged $8 for that delivery, which implies we need to be doing things at a cost-efficient way. And finally, the business and the customer need more real-time visibility. You need to be able to answer the question, where is that delivery and when is it going to get there? From some of our conversations with customers, over 80% of their customer service time goes towards answering the question, where is my pizza? Where are my groceries? Where's my package? So being able to manage all of that process actually also reduces the customer service costs, but that's an ancillary benefit. All right? So we all understand that the last mile is a critical differentiator of the customer experience, right? And it's not just me saying that, it's basically 97% of retailers. But that's not the only thing they're saying. They're saying something else that's very interesting, which is the current last mile models are not a sustainable way to proceed at scale. Okay? So let's think about why that challenge is so complicated, right? This is why. You have inventory coming from an infinite number of sources, various warehouses, stores, dark stores, numerous types of deliveries and fulfillment that you need to adhere to, whether it's same day, 2 day, 1 hour, ASAP, reverse logistics. You need to take data from numerous sources like POS systems and others. Um, Many of our customers have internal fleets, but they also use external fleets, and that creates a little bit of a chaos. And to resolve all of this chaos, we're basically looking for a solution that gives us three things. It allows us to provide those multiple fulfillment options. We need to be able to provide a personalized customer experience. And as mentioned, we need to do it at a decent price point. Right? It's okay to charge the customer for some of that delivery cost, but if it becomes too expensive, that hurts the customer experience and reduces our revenues. So that sounds like a pretty complex problem, right? So my peers at Bringg have come up with a framework that actually makes all of this sound a lot more simpler and manageable. And that's what I wanted to talk about very briefly. Essentially, when you think about this challenge, it boils down to 5 pillars of data. It's a data problem at the end of the day. If we have data from our customers, knowing where they are, knowing their preferences, knowing their CRM data, their preferences, we know we have information about their order, what is it that they'd like to receive, and what are their preferences in that regard. We know where our inventory is across warehouses, stores, dark stores, and numerous other options. We have data about the actual stores and warehouses and where they are. And we also know where every one of our fleets is located and where every one of our drivers is located at any point in time. Then we are able to do something magical that we at Bringg call orchestration, delivery orchestration. And I'd like to briefly demonstrate to you the wonderful things that you can accomplish when you're able to actually orchestrate all of your delivery operations. So let's take the checkout screen on any e-commerce site. I go on, I pick my merchandise, I want to check out. If the only option there is FedEx UPS and I can receive it in 1 or 2 weeks, I have other options. I can go to Amazon. I can go to other numerous websites. I can go to Deliveroo, right? But if we know where our customers are, where our fleets are, where our inventory is located in terms of stores or warehouses, and we know what the order is, then we can provide the most flexible and rich delivery options, delighting our customer. Let's take another example. So we've checked out, and we've placed our order, and we're now expecting that magical email telling us when exactly we're going to receive it. A 3 to 4 hour window is no longer acceptable, and there are numerous stats that I could quote saying how customers are expecting now to be able to receive more accurate ETAs on their deliveries. Well, what does it take to be able to offer that very accurate and specific time window? We need to know where our stores or warehouses are, where the customer is, and where the fleets are. And now we can tell you with much more accuracy when exactly you'll receive your merchandise. Let's go through a couple more quick examples. Order picking, mostly associated with groceries, but we see other examples as well. Our ability to be able to scan the merchandise in the closest location and deliver it to the customer in the fastest, most flexible way also has to do with that magic wheel of data pillars that allow us to make that determination at any point in time. We are also able to allow our customers to leverage the store infrastructure. I'm sure many of you know that there's a trend over the past few years where retailers, grocers, and others are trying to really reduce the reliance on warehouses so that they can actually deliver from store. A lot of benefits in that regard in terms of faster turnaround time, in terms of increased same store sales, in terms of a better customer experience. Well, you can actually do that a lot better when you have data from that magic wheel that I was describing. Driver efficiency. If we know at any point in time where the drivers are, where the inventory is, where the customer is, even if something unpredictable happens and a driver doesn't show up, logistics people are probably grinning at this point, right? Driver doesn't show up. When does that ever happen? Well, even when that happens, having full control and visibility over all of our fleets, all of our drivers at any point in time allows us to optimize that driver efficiency. Knowing exactly how long it takes a driver to get to the point of delivery, if there's an installation, in the case of big and bulky, for example, knowing how long they are going to be on site, knowing whether there are parking problems in that area and how long realistically it's going to take them allows us to optimize, consistently optimize, and get more deliveries out of every driver. And all of you in this room know the financial benefit of reducing even one truck from your delivery operations, and this really allows you to do that. Real-time tracking, both for the customer and for you as a business. So what we provide our customers is basically a customer experience where they can actually see at any point in time where the driver is with their package. Add to that the ability to actually interact with that driver, right? And say, hey, I need 30 minutes more, or please leave it with my neighbor. And that goes back to the control I was talking about earlier, right? Giving your customers a voice. One of the main challenges we're hearing from our customers is we ship the merchandise to the customer, then we send them an email saying, please share your feedback. The percentage of customers that actually respond to that email is minimal. But when you combine that with a customer experience, when they can track their package on the screen, interact with the driver, then confirm that they received it, and immediately they're prompted to provide their feedback, all of a sudden we're giving them a voice, and we get a lot more feedback about that delivery experience and about the whole shopping experience. And finally, and I promise this is the last example, but I truly feel that this is something that's very meaningful to everyone in this room, data insights. Think back to some of the questions that I asked you in the beginning of my presentation. Think to other questions like, if I'm utilizing multiple fleets, which one of them is providing the better customer experience? How many of them are on time? How much does it cost me to deliver with fleet X versus fleet Y, right? Getting all of that insight in the palm of your hand is only allowable when you have access to all of these 5 pillars of data, right? So we see a lot of retailers, a lot of brands really stressing over the age of Amazon and feeling like they're about to lose market share. There's a revolution in the market. We truly see it differently. We feel that by actually empowering brands and retailers to get access to all of this data, to integrate with all of these sources of data, they can afford to delight their customers. Many of you actually have an advantage over the Amazons of the world because you have storefronts which allow you even more flexible options to serve your customers. And by solving this very complex puzzle through these 5 pillars of data, with reasonable costs associated with it. I'll pause now and take any questions. Someone here?
While the mic's getting there, in terms of owning the customer experience on the retailer side, in the same way that Amazon owns their end-to-end from purchase to delivery, how does the retailer ensure that they have that branding throughout?
That's a very good question. And on the panel yesterday, if some of you happened to be in it, that same question came up. And that really boils down to the question of who owns the customer experience. And over the past years, we've seen several retailers actually offload their delivery operations to a fleet with a stack. Now, fleets and 3PLs are our best friends at Bringg. We actually integrate with many of the leading ones globally to help them manage their own fleets and to help them more easily integrate with retailers. But what we've seen in the past is companies like Instacart in the United States, if you're familiar with it. They're the largest online grocer. They give you an e-commerce interface. They do the picking. They do the delivery. They do everything except for own the groceries. And they came up to all the different grocers in the United States and said, hey, we can actually enable you to start doing deliveries and sell your merchandise online. And everybody was all over it. And so they started doing that. And it took a while before grocers realized that they were gradually turning into warehouses because they were fully reliant on one fleet with a tech stack, and They had very limited ability to integrate with additional fleets because then it becomes a complex data problem. And the customers are actually Instacart customers. The retailer, or the grocer in this case, doesn't really have the data, doesn't really have control over it. So to answer your question, having an orchestration platform that you as a retailer control allows you to control the brand experience, allows you to receive all of the data, and levels the playing field by making it your customer again.
I just wanted to focus on one of the combinations you mentioned, which was the optimization of the final mile. So I just wondered if you could expand a bit more on how you source the data and how you use it practically to make a difference in your optimization.
Sure. So I think one of the fundamental differences between our approach and some of the other approaches in the market is that the driver location is taken from their own handheld, not from a separate device or a vehicle that's being rigged. And what that means is we essentially really know real time where the driver is at any point in time. So what we're able to do is in batched deliveries, we run optimizations prior to the delivery being dispatched. And we know exactly where the fleets are and think about a delivered from store experience. So I'm sitting at home ordering something. The inventory happens to reside in a store near me. The business knows that a fleet or a driver is actually going to be passing by that store later this afternoon. Maybe they can offer me a same-day delivery for the same cost of a one-week FedEx because I'm a loyal customer. And the other integration here is with the customer and knowing their CRM data and knowing that they're a valued customer. So I digress a little bit, but to your question about optimization, having that handheld allows us to do route optimization prior to batch deliveries and make real-time adaptations in case there are changes like a driver not showing up or something happening to slow down the process. We know exactly where to route that delivery.
I guess in the business itself, is that task seen as like a priority with a structure set up around it, or is it automated as part of a wider solution?
So to a very large extent, it's automated. But obviously, the businesses always have the ability to override, and if something happens and you'd like to respond to it in a certain way, you have that ability. It's basically, think of it as a control tower. Okay? See that there's another question in the back?
The industry faces a sort of a general problem about margins, being a race to the bottom about having to provide free delivery, next day, and you have these emerging and increasing customer expectations. As a solution provider, what is your take in terms of the current market about, having to meet these requirements, and is there a silver bullet solution, I guess, to this issue?
I'm sorry, is there a
silver bullet solution to this issue?
Yeah, so obviously we believe that an orchestration platform is the solution. I don't know that I would call it a silver bullet solution. Generally, when we look at the industry, we see companies taking one of two paths. One is burying their heads in the ground, and I wish I had the image of the prior speaker to demonstrate that, and basically say, okay, let's hope everything works out. And you basically see e-commerce growing at 20% every year versus retail growing at 3 or 4% every year, and the math just doesn't add up. More and more customers are shopping online, fewer and fewer are visiting stores, and it's not ending anytime soon. If I'm not mistaken, it's been 20% for the past 10 years versus that 3-4% on average. And the others are people like the people in this room who understand that the world is changing and want to be proactive about it and want to explore what their options are when they are up against an experience created by Amazon that has $23 billion in research and development budgets every year. This is a technology game, and you need to fight tech with tech. And I think everyone in this room understands that.
Thank you.
There's another one in the back.
Thanks. Yeah, I had just a question about the fulfillment from within store. In the UK, we've had a number of retailers recently that have tried and gone down that post that I'm aware of, Toys R Us being a notable example of that, who have struggled to make that profitable due to the rehandling costs associated with putting it into store, etc. Now, I can see how it could work in the US in a big, sparsely populated, massive country where you're able to reduce the density of deliveries. But do you have examples, have you seen examples of where it can really work in a densely populated country like the UK? And also, a secondary question, how do you see the impact of sort of the green aspect in terms of the fact that you're not able to consolidate deliveries perhaps if you're delivering from store that you may be able to do if you were delivering from a centralized distribution network?
Okay, I'll take your questions one by one. First of all, when I think about customers in the UK, the first that pops to mind is Co-op. There are several others. When you think about, yeah, you're right, delivery from store is not trivial, but it requires a new thinking, right? Instead of delivering things to a warehouse and then having a rehandling with warehouse to store, first or middle mile, and then delivering it to the last mile, that creates additional costs that make it not cost efficient. But if you do the planning accordingly and you disperse the merchandise in the stores as inventory to begin with, there are ways to overcome it. Okay. To add to that and to answer your second question, when you add so much efficiency to your delivery operation by being able to leverage the right fleets, the right drivers, get as much capacity from those fleets and drivers at any point in time, that in most cases we see based on our customers sharing their data back with us results in cost efficiencies that far exceed the additional cost. In terms of the green footprint, I don't want to speak out of place. We haven't researched it, but I have to assume that doing things much smarter and doing things more efficiently and getting every driver to be at full capacity reduces the need to go back and forth and create a negative footprint.
So so to sort of summarize what you're saying is that looking at it from a holistic perspective enables you to drive much more value than looking at it from a...
You said it better than I did.
Thanks.
Thank
okay,
you.
lovely. Thanks.
Yeah. Another question here, I think.
Sorry. So we've seen that when entering new markets and new territories, high delivery costs can sometimes be a very important entry barrier. I was just wondering if your platform can help with, initial very high delivery costs into new markets.
Help with?
Very high delivery costs when entering new markets due to low volumes in the beginning.
Right, so this is a case-by-case thing, and I suggest you speak with me or one of my colleagues. Maybe this is a good opportunity to say that Andre and Imran from my team are here in the back and over here, and we'd be happy to continue the conversation afterwards. We have had those kinds of experiences. First example that comes to mind, again, a US-based one. We do have customers in Europe. I've just been more focused on the US side. Panera Breads. That's probably Starbucks' biggest competitor in the United States. They started working with us when they had no deliveries. They are now doing 1.2 million deliveries every month, right? And so absolutely orchestrating this operation and thinking through where inventory is coming from and where it's going to, and having a better way to utilize your fleets is a way to create efficiencies. I'm sure it applies in entry to new markets, but we'd have to get the specifics of your situation to see what the best way is to structure it.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions, the audience? I wondered whether, obviously we're talking about using delivery more efficiently and things like that. Is there any scope for introducing in-home services or other things like returns that use the same infrastructure?
Absolutely. So many of our customers use Bringg in order to support their reverse logistics and to do many other things. Another thing, when we talk in the context of delivery from store, we're seeing more and more businesses leveraging store associates to actually do deliveries instead of sitting idly during many of the hours of the day. What that sometimes translates to is you need to pay that employee different rates for when they are wearing the hat of a store associate versus when they're doing it as a driver, and different rules apply. So using the Bringg platform that tracks everything all the time, to use a simple term, you can actually also manage the payments to those employees for their respective roles.
Great. Well, unless there are any more questions from the audience, I'd like to thank Michael for his talk. And can everyone give him a round of applause?
Thank you very much.